Hello and welcome back to another episode of Slick Willy Fly. So what we're doing today is going to be a Marabou Seducer. A few weeks ago, I made these traditional seducer flies. And basically what we have in the vise today is essentially the same fly, different colors obviously, and instead of a hackle I used Marabou, Strung Marabou as our hackle. So let's jump in on it. I am going to use a size 1/0 stainless steel hook. This for me is a tarpon fly, but absolutely will work with snook or big redfish, sea trout, just about anything that wants to take a swipe at it. So I'm going to be using burnt orange 100 denier thread. I'm not going to put any lead at all on this fly. Once this fly is wet, it will sink, and I don't want to put a weed guard, so I don't really want it to sink to the bottom. If you chose to put a weed guard, it would be super simple to add a weed guard to this fly. So I've pre-prepped a bunch of feathers. The feathers that I'm using, interestingly, are all, well, not all, but mostly from a leftover packs of Ziploc bags of feathers that I have. And then I am using some feathers. This is Fly Dressings Tube Neck, Indisktup Neck Grizzly. And I can't even remember where I got this. I'm quite sure this was a gift. I haven't used it very much. There's nothing wrong with it. I just haven't really used it very much. So I've got about 6 feathers prepared for the tail, and I'm just gonna orient them so that they hook down mostly. I want them to be quite long because the Marabou itself is quite long, and I'm just gonna lock these in so that they appear nicely in the tail. There's no real rhyme or reason to this. And cutting off the tags. There's the first 2. Here's the next 2. Now I do want them to have some stagger in the tail, generally about the same length, but a little stagger is nice, I think. I think it gives them more action when they have stagger. So I'm just locking these in nice and hard. Cutting off the tags. When I use these thick stems, I tend to grab an older pair of scissors. I try to save my scissors from too much abuse. Now I got a couple of more feathers here. They're a little bit different length, and I did that on purpose so that it would create a little bit more of a stagger. Locking that in. Now one on the opposite side. Locking that guy in just like that. Perfect. Now I'm going to take a second and remove any tag and just trim this up nice and carefully. Beautiful. And I can clean up the head if I want now, which I'm not going to do because the next step for me is adding a little bit of crystal flash. For crystal flash, I found this crystal flash. You know, crystal flash is super cheap. I found this bag. It doesn't even have a label. I think I picked this up for like $2. But I just saw the color and I thought, man, this is awesome. So I love it. The best way, it's not gold, it's not orange. The best way I could describe this, it's like copper color. So I'm just gonna go ahead and, maybe I used 2 strands. I pulled out 1. We'll use 2. Pull out 1 more. I'm going to lay them on top of each other. A little bit of a stagger. And I'm going to go ahead and place this on the side closest to me so that it's almost as long as the tail. And I'm going to lock that in. Nice and hard. Then I'm going to take the other two to the opposite side. And I'm going to place them so that they ride on the opposite side. Just like that. Perfect. Then I'm going to trim them individually so that they have a little bit of a stagger. Now I have this bag, I can show you. It's a bag of leftover feathers. So I can't even really tell you what the feathers are, but they're awesome. They look like that. It's a cool little, awesome looking wispy feather. So I plucked a couple of these guys out of the bag. And I'm just gonna go ahead and attach them to the hook. I guess I want the curl down. So this will obviously have to go on the far side. Just like that. That looks fine. Cut that tag off. I've had this bag for many years. I got another one here. I'm going to do the same on the opposite side. I think this just is going to give it a little bit more volume in the tail, a little bit more action, a little bit of color. I mean, maybe it doesn't do anything at all, but it doesn't hurt at all to have it. All right. So now for the final step, my marabou. I pre-prepped some marabou. In the first fly that I showed you, in this fly, which is basically the same combo, I used only brown marabou. For this fly, I decided to use a two-tone blend. So I'm using brown and I'm using sand. I'm going to clean up some of these fibers that are going the wrong way. Never cutting on the same side as my bobbin. So now all I have to do, here's my pre-prepped marabou. I could put a link on how I prepped the marabou. I'm gonna do this by making a dubbing loop. The way I like to attach marabou, I really believe that by doing it this way, I make the marabou much more durable. I think this is a very good way to attach marabou to a fly. This is my big tasty way. So if you go into my videos and you find a big tasty, I do all my big tasties this way. So I put the marabou feather into the dubbing loop, and I'm using a spinner, and I just spin it up just like that. In this particular case, I did not add any flash to this dubbing, to this marabou. Normally I do. It's very unusual I don't add flash. What I'm using now is I'm using a needle just to untrap some fibers. It doesn't matter if I lose some marabou here. I got plenty of marabou on this hook. All right. I think that's good enough. So now what I'm going to do, let's get my thread a little bit out of the way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the rotary function, and I'm going to go in the same direction that I've been going with the thread. And on each rotation, I'm going to stroke back the fibers, I'm sorry. you know, Marabou just absolutely comes to life in the water. Marabou is I think it's just it's one of my absolute favorite tying materials. I love using Marabou. I think it's very easy to work with. I think it's got a ton of action and a ton of life. It's pretty inexpensive to purchase. I purchased bags of Strung Marabou and I make a bunch of flies with each bag. So Marabou for me is, it just fits all my criteria. And once you're basically to the back where I am now, and you just run your thread back, capture your Marabou, capture your dubbing loop, and trim it off. So now it's just clean up the head, a whip finish. This is where the burnt orange, I think, comes in awesome. I think that this burnt orange thread just looks awesome on this particular fly color combo. And you could tie this in any color you want. You can use white with red, you can use black feathers with purple Marabou. I mean, there's a million color combinations. You can, you know, mix and match however you like. It's up to your imagination. And like I said, this for me is it's a variant of a seducer fly, so this is a tarpon fly for me. And I just think it's an awesome fly. I guarantee you put this in front of a fat snook, that fat snook's gonna have a hard time passing up this fly. So there it is. Now, one step that you need to take is once you have this all tied off, you need to take a needle and you need to dig out your trapped fibers. And again, you might lose a couple fibers, but there's plenty of Marabou on this fly. I like to do it in both directions. Right now the Marabou's a little bit wet. I used a good amount of saliva when I was stroking everything back. If for some reason you think your Marabou's too long, you never cut Marabou. You would pinch and rip. You can see that in many of my other videos. So now I'm just going to put a tiny little bit of UV resin on the knot because I think it looks good and it basically makes the knot bulletproof. I'm going to use this little girl's hair clip to keep all the fibers away. I put just a tiny amount of UV resin on here. I stay away from the Marabou, and then what I do is I'll take my needle, once I've got a little bit of resin on there, I'll take my needle and I will very carefully just push it back to where the Marabou meets the thread. Very gently. Then I use the rotary function again just to give this a little bit of a spin. When you spin this UV resin, it kind of just evens out the layer, smooths it out, if you will, just makes it look just awesome. You do want to make sure when you use the resin that you've come off the front of the thread directly to the hook, right on the front there, so that it really just, there's no way that knot's coming undone. And once you're happy with it, and I think I'm happy with it, you zap it with your lamp, with your light here, and you know, they say 5 to 10 seconds and it's cured, and it's probably true. I give it 15, 20, 30 seconds. I'm not in any rush. I'm tying, you know, one fly today. This is it. And I will put this fly in my windowsill today and let Mother Nature, let a little sunlight just really deep cure this thing. But that's it. That's the Marabou Seducer, the Slick Willy Marabou Seducer. In the colors I used were sand and brown. So we'll call this sand and brown color. Let me show it to you a little better. And I promise you, this fly in black and purple, white and red, I mean, any color combination you can think of will work just awesome. So there it is. I think it came out great. It's got a little bit of flash, a little bit of everything. Here's the brown one that I tied just earlier. They're basically the same fly, and really happy with them. And they're both going to catch a lot of fish, and I'll be taking them to Florida here soon. Definitely coming to Florida. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and good luck catching, and see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.